So, the one concept that is more or less foundational to my actual trading, or my trading methodology, so to speak, are the flow ranges. This is my view of them. So, start out what's an OFR? What's an order flow range? So, simply put, is an extended section of prices development displaying who's actually in control, who's currently in control. Is either you have, say, for instance, the bullish order flow being more predominant or being more dominant, so to speak. Or you have the bearish order flow being more dominant. Order flow ranges, or my view of them, functions to explain or functions to elucidate, to make clear who's actually in control so we know how to navigate through prices development. Second point, use cases for order flows. Two simple use cases, to be honest, to frame a potential trade idea to frame the potential trade idea. So this comes in the form of, say, for instance, directional bias, or to actually determine how we're getting involved in prices development and the prospective delivery. So how we looking to navigate through price once we got the understanding or once we got the framework set already in regards to order flow. Now, the third point, characteristics of a valid order flow. It's interesting. It's interesting the characteristics of a valid order flow. Simply, they have valid range highs and valid range lows, but there's a validifying factor for both of these. For, say, for example, in the bullish framework, to validify the range high, I would need to know where the actual reverse switching order flow is, and to validify the range low, I would need to know with great levels of clarity where the actual support and liquidation is. Now, these two terms, reverse switching order flow and support and liquidation, they function as a guide for me, so I know for certain where I could potentially draw on a valid order flow range. I'd mostly make a video, a short video in the future explaining these two concepts in great detail. That's the motive, right? And you could all honestly think that for a bearish framework it will more or less be the same, but opposite. Whereas like the range low is confirmed, or the validifying factor for the range low lies within where the reverse switching order flow is, and the range high is validified by the actual support and liquidation, or where it lies, so to speak. Now, you can most at least see these two little like graphs or infographics that I have. Yeah, graphs or little explanations that I have next to each one, and it shows bullish framework and bearish framework. Now, for the bullish framework, I know my order flow range high is in place because of where the reverse switching order flow lies. The moment I get this reverse switching order flow, it speaks to me that this is the high that is actually in place. This is the high that we actually playing more or less within, or the order flow range liquidity high is being created in this moment. Now, there are validifying factors for this as well, the reverse switching order flow. As I said, we'll go into a video in the future that speaks specifically towards these two concepts, the reverse switching order flow and obviously support and liquidation. But for the range low, for me to know for certain where the range low actually is, I gotta figure out where the support and liquidation lies, because it's a validifying factor. And there's a way in which I go about doing this to make the system a bit, I mean, my methodology or how I approach these markets more or less mechanical or systematic, so to speak, and is using the Gann bots. You could obviously use the Fibonacci tool as a replacement for the Gann bots, but in my opinion, they both serve the same function. So, the real question, why do I use the Gann bots or whatever tool you use in understanding where you use my ranges? Now, for me to know for certain where the support and liquidation lies is relevant to the overall range, or my perception of the overall range. If there's a situation where I think a low might be the support and liquid, might be the range low, I have to have a support and liquidation in order to validify the idea, or to add weight to the idea, so to speak. So say for instance, I see a reverse switching order flow and I know that this is my high, but I'm not sure where my low is. So say for instance I had this as my initial low. The reason why this wouldn't be considered my actual range low lies within the fact that there's no support and liquidation that's actually present in this range that I've drawn out. So far we only got, like, say for instance, two of the valid factors running, and that is the range high through confirmation or through the validifying factor, the reverse switching order flow right here. But if I use this as my range low, for example, where is the support and liquidation within the range, and that's where it gets interesting, because in order for me to know for certain whether or not a support and liquidation is valid, is based on where it is positioned within the actual range that I look to play from. What I mean by this, simple. Is either operating within premium prices or discounting prices or discounted prices. For bullish frameworks, you don't want to be operating in premium prices. I could assure you, you don't want to. Otherwise, you might find situations like this happening where you're thinking, oh, this is actually a range for me to play from, but it doesn't fit the criteria. So what makes it a valid range, And then it merely functions as a reverse switching order flow to confirm the actual range height. This is where it gets a bit more interesting. How I know for certain this is not a range low is because there's no support and liquidation. Now, how I know there's no support and liquidation, there's no visible low or clear low in the order flow range that I draw on, like the initial order flow range I draw on, that would make me think, you know what, there's support and liquidation, and this will now function as my low. In this case, that can't happen. Why? Because if you look, it's just a nice move, or a nice impulsive move, so to speak. But where it gets interesting is that once I see a situation developing where my initial thought of where the range low actually is, it doesn't have a support and liquidation just above it, then it speaks to me, you know what? This might not be my range low, this might actually be my support and liquidation. And so I proceed to choose another low, but this time a low that is actually valid. And why is it valid? Because the support and liquidation is evident. The validifying factors are both evident. The reverse switching order flow confirming the range high, and the support and liquidation confirming the range low. And I could assure you you could guess that the same thing applies for the bearish framework as well. The same exact thing applies for the bearish framework also. Whereas, like, in order for me to know for certain that my order flow high, my order flow range liquidity high, or order flow high, is actually in place, is because of this key factor, the support and liquidation. How I know that this is the low in place is because of this key factor, the reverse switching order flow. Now, mapping them, simple as determine where the range high lies based on the validifying factors, determine where the range low lies based on the validifying factors. They have factors, but in reality it's just one, to be honest. One of each. Either the reverse switching order flow or the support and liquidation. And the third step, to clearly annotate them. So I know for certain this is actually valid because of what's happening inside. And to be honest, I can just end the video here, That's a calm explanation as to order flow ranges and how I view them, the simplistic nature, simplistic nature of how I approach these markets. Now, say for instance, they just go into price and try to plot the same thing. I think this is yesterday and today, actually. It's interesting. But applying like the same framework I was using here, like say for example from step 3 to step 4 in regards to the characteristics, if I looking at prices development, and I can see that we overall bearish on Dow. Because of how order flow is printing. What would be my next step? It's calm. The next step would be figuring out if a valid order flow range is put in place, but we have to know which framework to use. We understand the order flow is bearish in regards to framing the potential idea, the directional bias is bearish. So that means you have to operate within the bearish framework for validifying the order flow range that you intend to play from. So it was interesting. What I mean by it was interesting is the mere fact that we're looking at, say for instance, this scenario playing out and how to map it, start to annotate. So what you could see was like the first thing you could see. Say for example, we focus on this range. What's the first thing you could see or understand? Directional bias is bearish. Yeah, the directional bias is bearish. So it signaled to me I should be operating within the bearish framework, but I'm not sure my range high, my range low. Like, so what do I do? Begin annotating. First step, the reverse switching order flow. How I know that this is the actual low in place is when we actually get the reverse switching order flow happening right here. Reverse switching order flow happening, so it speaks to me that this low is now my order flow range low. Order flow range liquidity low in this case. But as I get onto liquidity, it gets interesting. Now, if I move now, to say for instance, I know where my low is in place, but I looking to figure out, wait, that doesn't quantify or not quantify, that doesn't validify my actual range or order flow range. What's the next step I'm looking for? Confirmation of the actual order flow range liquidity height. And to be honest, this is where it gets a bit interesting. Say for instance, I use this as my height. What's the validifying factor that I'm waiting for? So what am I looking for to validify the idea that my range liquidity high, my order flow range high is actually in place? Supporting liquidation. How do I know where supporting liquidation lies? It's simple. Using the GAN tool, plotting the high to the already confirmed order flow range liquidity low, or the flow range low. I'm just looking for a clear supporting liquidation. Now, if I'm being honest, I can't see a clear supporting liquidation. I could, indeed see this high, but to me, it speaks nothing. It speaks to me that this is not indeed a valid supporting liquidation. And as I said, I can get much deeper into why this is not one valid supporting liquidation. But following on from how the video and the recording is going, the explanation is going, in these cases where I think my order flow range high, or my initial thought of the order flow range high is actually this, but I realize there's no supporting liquidation within the actual range that I chose, speaks to me that, you know what, that high that I used functions as the actual supporting liquidation. So much that now we got the order flow range high in place, along with the order flow range low in place, based on, say for instance, if I just amend the scan box, we can see a clear high within premium pricing, or within our position weld. Our proper position is what I like to call it. Right, and this is where it gets mad interesting as well. The function now for price, say for instance, is to trade towards this order flow range liquidity low, order flow range low. But in the event that, say for instance, tomorrow we don't get this happening, or we don't get price trading to break through this low to more or less form like a new range, or to print a new range, then we could indeed look to play the moment this supporting liquidation actually gets liquidated, the moment it goes. And for the sake of it, I might as well just do another example this concept, so to speak. This is where it gets even more interesting. If we analyze this piece in price, looking for order flow range low, I understand the framework is still mad bearish, so it means I'm looking to play bearish order flow ranges. So first step, well, the third step actually, the characteristics, we're looking to validify it. A reverse switching order flow. And once I got my reverse switching order flow, I know for certain that this becomes my range low. This becomes my range low, right? What was interesting is that I could, as I say, this calls for another video, but I know for certain that this is my range low based on what happening as price already broke, but we move indeed. Now, to figure out where the actual, range or the full range height is, remember, support and liquidation. If I use this height, for instance, and I play it to D low, I can't acknowledge this as a proper support and liquidation. Why? Because look at where we're playing from the overall area and price. That's where it gets much more interesting. Look at where we're playing overall in price. How many times that we actually broke before we actually say, for instance, cleared this liquidity resting, or this range low resting. So this is where it gets even more interesting, because as I said, deeper validifying factors in regards to how you're mapping the support and liquidation along with your reverse switching order flow. Because I say, for like, you will say, for instance, this is my support and liquidation, but I know this as my reverse switching order flow to confirm the actual range low. And in this case, there isn't a clear support and liquidation where this range I drawn on is confirmed. So what I mean is that this now becomes my support and liquidation. This now becomes my support and liquidation. And my actual range high goes a step higher. And now this becomes a valid range to play from. What's interesting is that, get a bit more advanced. I'm not sure if I want to go down that road, but what was interesting is that yesterday, I think it was from yesterday, when I actually mitigated a move from Monday, from Monday, I was looking at price, I was analyzing price, and I understood this as a potential area for me to play from. But based on my entry model and, you know, how I actually navigate through price in regards to entries and exits, I wasn't keen on playing price from here, because I also saw this as a support and liquidation. Based on what? Based on the mere fact that I like to play from more or less the origin of the actual area, or origin of the actual range. If I just zoom or just close my eyes, or say, for instance, just go ahead and use like a line chart, I can see a move, then I went up, and then I went down, then I went up, and then obviously it goes on and goes on and goes on. So I saw this as my actual range to play from, but it never mitigated. But it's all nice and calm, to be honest. It's all nice and calm. It wasn't enough for me to play from, but it was enough for me to understand that this was a proper range to play within. Now, say for instance we go on to like probably one more example before I actually go close off this video. I don't know, probably here. One more example, all right? We can see, you know, this is more or less a bit more advanced or complex price to play within. What I could see is more or less like a few things happening. I can see some messiness going on, but what I can also see is that the framework is still bearish. With the framework bearish, the directional bias obviously what I mean with framework, and it speaks to me that, you know what, I can use the bearish order flow range framework to actually go ahead and annotate and see what's actually going on in price. So the first here we'll look at validifying the range low and the range high. How would I validify this low as a range low? The reverse switching order flow. Where does it actually lie? Where is it actually? And I'm saying, yeah, this is interesting. I reverse switching order flow, and I say, for instance, this could be my range. But validifying factors, where is supporting liquidation? Some may say, oh, this could be a nice supporting liquidation. But as I said, it gets deeper. This would not be regarded as supporting liquidation, and this would not be my range high based on this idea that I have of compressed schematics and understanding what you like to see in price that will warrant proper range highs and proper range low, proper validifying factors as well. So this now, I could honestly see this as a supporting liquidation based on the validifying factors that I have. Similar to, say, for instance, not similar, but so that I could confirm where the actual range high lies. And now it's just for me to map the actual range high. And it becomes this high. Why is it this high? Because it's supporting liquidation that lies within premium pricing in this case. And this is from a short that I actually took on was it 11th of April, last week, Thursday. Very nice and clean to the order flow range, to the order flow range low, because I understood the concept of order flow ranges, or I understood my understanding of the concept of order flow ranges. We're looking to play within order flow range high and order flow range low to determine how, if I go back to this little markup, to determine, that's wild, but to determine how I actually frame the potential trade idea, along with determining how I actually getting involved in prices delivery. So this was an example of the play. Yeah, this was an example of the actual play. Yeah, a nice example of the actual play from Thursday, based on understanding order flow ranges. So if the video was helpful and informative, leave a like, a comment, care to subscribe. Let me know, especially in the comments, what you gain from the video, along with I want you to complete this one actionable step. I will link my Twitter in the actual description so that you could, I don't know, send me some examples. Send me some examples of your viewing of order flow ranges, and I will go ahead and respond to the message and tell you whether or not is a nice range to play from, or nice range to play from, or if it isn't a nice range to play from. That would indeed be all from me. Leave a like, subscribe, and complete the actionable step. Comment. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what you take away from the actual video. Have a good one.